Konnichiwa! Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Nihongo Master podcast. It's Azra, your host, and today's episode is just slightly different from the usual. As you can tell from the title, we'll be doing a brief run-through of a standard Japan job interview for this week's Study Saturday. If you've tuned into our previous episode, where we dropped 3 major tips for your mensetsu, you'd already know the flow to it. Basically, there are 3 sections: self-introduction, the reasons for working and living in Japan, and the questions about the future. So our normal format is having a general run-through of the grammar point, then example situations, and afterwards the vocab recap. Today's one will be slightly different. We'll be breaking into 3 sections for the 3 parts of a Japan job interview, each with their own example situation. So if you're all set and ready, let's jump right into it, shall we? Right, we're going into the first part, which is the self-introduction. In Japanese, that's jiko shoukai. So, you have to basically introduce yourself. You gotta talk about yourself, your name, where you're from, educational background, which is gakureki in Japanese, and employment history, shokumo kaireki in Japanese. Don't forget to put all of that in your resume, rirekisho, too. On top of that, interviewers would want to know your dreams, strengths and weaknesses, biggest achievement and mistake, all of that. Hype yourself up, but not too much. Keep it professional. Some might want to know your Nihongo no Reburu, Japanese level, and why you're learning Japanese, so it's best to include that as well. All of this is to show your personality and way of thinking. Avoid talking about your family or private life. I know it's a lot, but try to keep the introduction to 1 minute. Your introduction is important because it sets the first impression, and it plays an important part of judging if you're a good fit for the company. We'll have a quick role-playing scenario of a short jiko shoukai.
まずは簡単に自己紹介してお願いします。
はい、リサと申します。イギリスのロンドンから来ました。日本の文化に興味があるから、日本語を勉強しています。日本語を使うために日本に来ました。2020年にロンドン大学を卒業しました。ロンドン大学で2年間東アジアの歴史を専攻していました。後で A 株式会社に入社しました。ここで2年間働いて管理経験を積みました。現在は経営に貢献し、英語力を活かせる会社を探しています。どうぞよろしくお願いします。
それでは、リサさんが大学時代一番頑張ったことを教えていただけますか？
はい、大学時代一番頑張ったのはアルバイトです。洋服店で3年間アルバイトをしています。製品の発注業務を任せれています。製品を発するときは、前年度の売上や直近のトレンドを確認しながら、何をどれだけ発注するのかを見ています。
なるほど。
Okay, let's listen to the English translation.
First off, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Lisa. I come from London, England. I'm interested in the Japanese culture, which is why I study Japanese. I came to Japan to use Japanese. I graduated from London University in 2020. At university, I studied East Asian history for 2 years. After that, I joined A Co Limited. Here, I worked for 2 years and gained management experience. Currently, I'm looking for a company that I can contribute to management and make use of my English skills. Please be kind to me.
Lisa-san, during your time in university, can you tell me when was it you worked the hardest?
Yes, I worked hard during my part-time job during my time in university. I worked at a clothes shop and I was in charge of ordering products. When ordering the products, I checked the sales of the previous year and the latest trends to see what to order and how much to order.
I see.
Moving on to the second part, reasons for working and living in Japan. Now, expect questions like, why do you want to work in Japan? And what brought about your interest in Japan? These are the questions that are very common during Japan job interviews. Think about the biggest challenge since you moved to Japan and also how you overcame it. A success story is never bad. All these questions are to know your motivation for living in Japan and if you're comfortable communicating with the locals and live in the environment. Also in this section, most interviewers want to know about your plans on staying in Japan and how your family feels about it. I know I said not to talk about family, but if they ask, they're concerned about what your family thinks of your moving. In Japanese culture, family plays a huge role in decision making, which is why they're interested. Sugarcoat your answers if you have to. Don't say you plan to stay for only a few years. Say you want to live here as long as possible. Don't say your parents don't approve. Say they're very supportive. When answering these questions, make sure you're assuring them that you're not going to up and leave after a year, and there's no risk of you going back home anytime soon. Now, let's look at an example.
リサさんは日本にずっと長く住んでいきたいと思っていますか？
はい、日本にずっと住んで働いていきたいと思っています。せっかくここまで日本語を勉強したので、ずっと使っていきたいと思っていますし、あとは日本の文化とか考え方をもっと深くしていきたいというふうに考えています。
ご両親はリサさんが日本で就職することや長く住んでいくことに対してどのように考えていらっしゃいますか？
両親は私が日本で勉強して就職をしようとしていることについてとても喜んでいますし、心に思ってくれています。もちろん親なので心配することもありますけれども、今まで何回も日本に来たことがありますので、私は日本で一人暮らししていることについては全く心配していません。
そうですか。親御さんとしては寂しいから帰ってきてほしいとか、家を継いでほしいとか、そういうことについてはいかがですか？
両親たちはとても柔軟な考えなので、私のやりたいようにやらせてくれています。それに私に帰ってきてほしいと頼むのではなくて、自分たちが日本に来て私に会いに来てくれています。その時にはですね、一緒に日本の国内旅行して日本を楽しんでいます。
そうですか。わかりました。
Let's listen to the English translation.
Miss Lisa, do you plan to live in Japan permanently?
Yes, I plan to live in Japan as long as possible. I've learned Japanese, so I like to continue using the language. I would also like to understand Japanese culture and their way of thinking more deeply.
What do your parents think about you working in Japan and your long-term plan?
My parents are so happy and proud of me that I studied and I'm trying to get a job in Japan. Of course, they are my parents, so they worry sometimes. But they have been to Japan many times themselves, so they don't worry about me living alone in Japan at all.
I see. Do they feel sad if you live far from them? Or do they want you to take over the family business?
My parents are very flexible, so they let me do what I want to do. They don't ask me to return home. They come to visit me in Japan instead. When they come to Japan, they enjoy traveling around Japan.
Is that so? I understand.
The third section is questions about the future, or mirai in Japanese. If you've tuned in to Season 6, Episode 5, you'd know about the Japanese mindset. They're very particular about certainty and stability. You'll get asked about your plans for a career, what you think your role is in their company, and what you want to achieve as their employee, if you were to get hired. This is pretty standard in any job interview, so definitely research the company you're applying for. Think about what you can offer to the company, and where do you see yourself in 5 years in the company. Also think about why you want this company. Even if it's not your first choice, change your mindset to bring up your enthusiasm. We mentioned in our previous episode, Season 6, Episode 10, on how you can put yourself in that mindset. Check that out if you haven't. Now, each company is different, but here's an example of this section.
それでは、リサさんの志望動機をお聞かせいただけますか？
はい、私は英語が母国語で日本語も話せるので、国際的な環境で働いていきたいというふうに思っています。
では、なぜうちに会社のないといけないのか、そこら辺について少し詳しくお聞かせいただけますか？
はい、説明会の中で御社の若い社員の方が勤むことを工夫で売り上げを伸ばしたお話をされていました。とても印象的だったのが、 若いうちから任せてもらえる環境だということです。こうした環境の中で私も販売やマーケティングについて勉強して貢献していきたいというふうに思って御社を志望しました。
なるほど。わかりました。
Let's listen to the English translation.
Would you advise me what the reason is for your application?
As my first language is English and I can speak Japanese, I'd like to work in an international environment.
So, why is it our company? Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yes, in your company's recruiting session, a young salesperson talked about how he increased his sales by his ideas and efforts. I was impressed in his speech that young people can get the opportunity to do important tasks and take responsibility. I'd like to learn sales and marketing in this environment and contribute, which is why I applied for your company.
I see. I understand.
I hope this run through and these examples are helpful for your Japan job interview prep. Remember, companies can differ and vary, so tweak the info to fit the company you're interviewing for. I personally find interviews nerve-wracking, even in English, let alone in a foreign language. Are you the same? Tell us your thoughts by commenting on social media platforms. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Also, if you're interested in similar bite-sized grammar pointers, head over to Nihongo Master blog for more. And if you're keen on picking up some more Japanese for yourself, pop onto our official website, nihongomaster.com, to learn more about interactive online learning system. At Nihongo Master, we offer efficient Japanese lessons that are quick, easy, and fun for Japanese language learners of all levels, from beginners to advanced. Our smart tools will assist you in areas where you need a bit of a push and congratulate you on the ones you've aced. Get a subscription today and get a head start on your Nihongo journey with Nihongo Master. And thank you so much for listening in. Join me next time. We'll be looking at another interesting part of the Japanese language. Mata ne!